We are live. All right.
Hey.
What is up, folks? Hit these comments here. Rain delay. Yeah, well, sort of.
Mexican dinner delay.
There's a Mexican dinner delay. My wife has been eating really, really good for like 11 days, and she had her mind set on Mexican tonight. So got home a little bit late, and we ran up there, and they were a little bit slow. We were just kind of chilling, relaxing. Next thing we know, it's like 7:20, and so I ran up there, paid for everything, and we jumped in a vehicle and boogied down here. So, yeah,
we can do this fishing report at any time. It's much better to have the wife happy and do the live stream 5 minutes late.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Definitely. What's up, man? Let's see who else on here. We got let's see, we got Sharpnell 71, Rain Delay. Yeah, Bill Haney's on here. What's up, Bill? Bill bought my old boat, my old aluminum boat, the Alumacraft 7, or let's see, what was it? 1442. Yeah. So anyway, he's trying to sell that. He's wanting something just slightly bigger. So if you guys are in the market for a good used aluminum boat, Bill's got one for sale. What's up, Cody? Got Gary Maynor in here. He said he's down here at Egypt till Sunday, staying at Clifty Creek. Cool. Yeah, Cody, it's funny. Ron, the first thing I said to Ron was, "Nice shirt, man. Like that shirt." I usually wear his RD Outdoors sweatshirt. Checking all these up. Chips and queso, Hellabass. Yeah, I had combination number 1. It's like a couple enchiladas and a beef soft taco, and then some rice.
So are we talking about the bathroom break about halfway through?
No, I'm good, man. I got it dialed in. I know what I can eat and what I cannot eat. So, yeah, comes from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask the guy that was staying in Clifty Creek. I'm always curious about the like the Airbnb or that type of business. If he was staying at a place like that around the lake, I'm just curious. Not a big deal, but
Cerveza, sí, amigo. Yeah, I don't know what I was wondering what all is back there to stay in.
Well, I mean, there's just there's homes around the lake back there, so I'm curious. That Airbnb, that's what we did when we went down to Gunnersville, and I haven't done much of that, but that's a really good way to travel to fish. And I know there's some of that going on around Lake of Egypt, but I just curious when I hear someone say they're staying here. I'm just curious where they're staying and whatnot. And then if I get someone that hey, I'm coming to the lake, where can you stay? It just helps me tell them the right things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dave Holm. That's Dave's who I went fishing with on Marion Reservoir the other day. And it's kind of funny. I Googled, there's a Marion City Reservoir, and then there's a Marion Reservoir. And the Marion City Reservoir is not the one you want to try to go to because it has an actual fence almost all the way around it. And it's right in the middle of a neighborhood with really tight quarters. It's hard to even drag a boat down through there. So I was supposed to meet him there at 8, and so it's like 7:57, and I'm right there, and I'm trying to find out how in the world do I get in this little pond. Google keeps taking me this way. I keep going around in circles, and it told me to turn down this one road, and I'm looking down, and there's a fence all the way across the road. It's a dead end with a gate on it. So I keep going around, and I'm totally lost. So I finally pulled over in a parking lot, and I called Dave, and I'm like, "Man, dude, I don't know where I'm at." He's like, "Well, what street are you on?" I said, "I'm right next to 37. He's like, "Well, you're close, but you're not at the right place." So long story short, I was about 10 miles away from the proper Marion Reservoir, and completely different lake. I think the one I was trying to fish in was like a sewage lake or something. I don't know. So
I was going to say, I'm not sure where you were at. Yeah, the sewage treatment area is right up, like it's in between Market Street and 37 there. That's not someplace I'd want to fish.
That's where I was at. That's where I was at. Anyway,
All
I
right.
know how to get there now. So
Right.
that's how we learn.
There you go. There you go.
So we got Cody in here, Bass Guy 1960, T. Harris, what's up? Jeremiah, Wade, and got Todd Phelps down there. Smallwater Charles, man, there's a bunch of people in here.
Cool. Guys are ready to go fishing.
Yeah, it's that.
I've even seen some posts from like Hella Bass and some guys up north getting their boats ready, and it doesn't sound like they could answer it better than I could, but it doesn't sound like ice up very far away up north. Sounds like it's progressing quickly.
I bet everybody is ready. Mud.
We're just 3 weeks out from ice out here, or 3.5 or whatever it was.
I know it is weird. It just I forgot about it. It seems like it was forever ago.
Yeah.
It's the longest 3 weeks of my life, I think. So Sharpnail 71 says mud. Yeah, there's a lot of mud. We'll kind of get into that. So I'll give you I'll start out with talking about Cedar Lake. And guys, while we're in here, if you guys have been fishing anywhere this weekend, you want to leave a report, feel free to leave it in the comment section and we can share it with everybody. Just, lake and water temperature, water clarity. Had a couple people reaching out wondering what Kincaid Lake is like right now. And I haven't been over there. I haven't really heard anything since last week, but maybe some of you guys out there have been over there and can give us a little bit of an update. I went over to Cedar Sunday mid-morning. I guess I got on the water about 9. I fished till a little after 1, maybe 1:30, 1:45, something like that. And it was really tough. I hadn't been over there. Like I was telling Ron, I hadn't been over there in about 2.5 months. The last time I was over there was, I think, the last Winter Series tournament that we fished. And that was a couple weeks before it got ice on it. So, I didn't really, I kind of knew kind of what might be going on over there, but I still wanted to sample a bunch of stuff. So I spent time out fishing deep. I spent time fishing outside grass line, main lake points, secondary points, coves, all the stuff. I was just kind of playing around and I really couldn't get bit. It looked good. So it was muddy, which I like a lot of staying this time of year. And the water temps were 50. There were 52 in Pomona. And, it didn't vary a whole lot until the afternoon. There was a sunny day, bluebird skies. And obviously that muddy water warms up pretty quick. But I stayed shallow I tried to focus shallow. That was my intention, is to focus on the shallow fish. And I just couldn't get bit. I talked to Rich, who's out there all the time. He said it had been extremely tough for a couple weeks. It's kind of one of those deals where you can go one day, a day like today, like we had some light rain, not hardly any wind. A day like today, you can go out there and just smash them. And then you get a cool temperatures, you get a cold morning or two, bluebird skies, and it's like there's not a fish in the lake. It just you can go from the best day to really a grinder day. So it just depends on the day. But so Rich was saying that there was a tournament the Sunday before, and there were 25 boats, and he said it took 5 pounds to win, which typically over there it takes on a tough tournament's like 9.5 pounds, and a good tournament could be 13.5, 14 pounds. So to hear that it only took, 5 pounds or whatever was really, really tough. And he said it's just been fishing really, really tough. So, with that in mind, I kind of kept that in the back of my brain and knew that, I was going to be about kind of bouncing around trying to locate some fish. And I covered a lot of water, and right at the end of the day, about 1 o'clock, I pulled in a cove up towards the northern end. and the water was a little bit clearer. Instead of being 6 inches to a foot, it was like a foot and a half-ish, you know, and the wind was kind of blowing in on this north facing bank. And I got 5 bites right there in about 30 minutes. You know, I hooked up with one on a jerk bait. I had another bite in a jerk bait, and then I got 3 spinnerbait bites. But it was just a short window that I don't know necessarily that I found like some, you know, spot that the fish had been sitting there, you know, for a while. I think they just moved up. I think as the water got warmer in the afternoon, those fish had moved up. I guess what I'm saying is I probably, if I would have went through there a couple hours earlier, I wouldn't have got those bites. I think those fish had just moved up. And unfortunately, I had to go. You know, I had to be back home at 3 o'clock. And I wasn't able to really expand on that. But that's kind of what happens this time of the year is there's feeding windows and there's days. You know, sometimes you catch those feeding windows on the right day and the feeding window goes for a long period. And sometimes those days are just super tough. And I know me and Ron had talked about this, how the fish are kind of still grouped up right now. And you got a lot of dead water, you know, and then all of a sudden you'll get, like I just mentioned, you'll get 5 bites in a little short stretch. And as it gets closer to the spawn, those fish will start moving up and they'll start spreading out, and you'll be able to catch, you know, more fish in multiple places throughout the lake. But, and I mean, that's really close. But from what I was finding over there at Cedar, they were still kind of, you know, ganged up or whatever. So that's what I discovered.
Yeah, I'm kind of a similar report. I've been on Egypt. Of course, I live over here on Egypt. So I did not fish today. I took the day off kind of on purpose with the weather rolling through. But I fished yesterday, and then I'm going to fish again a little bit tomorrow. I got a tournament Saturday. But similar report. Maybe not quite as tough as what Gabe had on Sunday, but fish are, if you get in an area, the right area, it seems really easy. And then you'll go for a while with stuff that looks the same and with no results. I think that's on Egypt. I think part of that's fishing pressure and timing of when you hit fish and when they come up, compared to maybe when fishing pressure gets to the fish. As everyone knows, Egypt is notorious for a lot of fishing pressure. Egypt holds a lot of high school tournaments, so it attracts a lot of attention from the local high school teams. Even when they're not having a tournament, they're out here pre-fishing. I saw a lot of that yesterday. Big high school tournament out here Saturday, the same day as our Angler's Choice tournament. But that's just life on Lake of Egypt. You learn to deal with it. But fishing during the week, if you're going to come out here to fish, the first thing I would tell anyone for Lake of Egypt, come out here during the week. Fishing during the week is totally different than on the weekend, simply because of the relatively less boats. But it feels like on Egypt, we might be a few days ahead of some of the other lakes. Feels like in general the fish have kind of jumped up a notch. Dirty water in all the creeks, obviously. All the typical baits in dirty, shallow water in the springtime are working: spinner baits, chatter baits, jig, what have you, crankbait if they're in the right type of bank. But seems like the fish kind of moved up a notch. And started catching, for a long time we weren't catching any little fish, or at least I wasn't. And now the little fish seem plentiful, so that's a sign maybe some males have moved up. So it'll be, told Gabe, we talked a little bit before the show, I'm curious that when the first report of someone seeing a spawning fish will be. I think it's sooner rather than later. Water temperature on Egypt is basically front to back 58. You can find warmer, but the wind and all the rain and everything we've had has really mixed the water. It's really not a lots of differences in water temperature unless you're way back in a cove or something like that where the sun's been beating on it. So upper 50s solid. And it's the lake. I mean, the lake's right there. And I know today the fish went nuts out here. I didn't fish today, but I got a fishing report. I know the fish went a little bit nuts today, which is to be expected with the weather the way it had come through. It was kind of perfect for it. And so here's to see what we got lucky. We dodged a little bit of rain. We had tornado watches and stuff forecasted, and they took all that down here just within the last, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes. And so we're not going to get quite as much rain today as what they thought was possible. So that's good. We don't really need any more. We got plenty of color in the water. So it might be good. I think it's supposed to be like 75 on Saturday. So
that comes from Bass Guy 1960. Bass Guy 1960 said, "Hey, I got to jump in. Out to Ron for some solid advice last Thursday night. He said he switched to a finesse jig to slow the fall. Ended up with big bass and third place." So he said,
"Oh, sweet. Where at?"
Hopefully he'll get back here.
Oh, Gabe, well, I'm thinking about, did you mention the water temp at Cedar?
Oh, okay. I started to. It was 52 in Pomona when I put in about 9 o'clock. And then I went back in. And by the way, I'm dropping a video from that day tomorrow morning. So you'll be able to watch all that again. But I ran back in clay and it was about 54. And then towards the end of the day, I saw 67 and a half. And actually, no, I saw not 67. I saw 56 and a half and a little stretch that had 57.4 or something like that. So I went from 52 to 57 and a half, basically, just that was like 1:30-ish in the afternoon, full sun, a little bit of south wind blowing in on that bank. So, and somebody, let me see if I can find this down here again. Somebody had mentioned, this is something I wouldn't mind getting into. Let me scroll down here. I got to try to keep on top of these comments a little better. But somebody had mentioned that water temp that you want to see in the morning. And I kind of talked about that. I don't know where that's at. If I run across it again, I'll pull it up. But, that water temp, when you pull up to the lake and dump your boat in. So to me, that is a real good sign of where the fish are in the spawning process. Because like I just mentioned, it'll jump up from 52 to 57. So in the morning at 52, if you have a cold night, it might drop off to 50. But I think when you pull up on that and you dump your boat in, and that water temp says like 54, 55, that's the low spot. I think that right there to me is just what you need to push those pre-spawn fish into that next stage, where they really start to get active. That consistent, there's a low threshold, that they want to see where it's not going to get lower than that. And I think we're right there. We really are, it's just a matter of, we just, whenever we quit having those couple cold nights, because like Sunday when I was there, when I got there, it was 30 degrees. And the night before it got down to 30 degrees. When I drove by, there was steam coming off the cows' backs out in that field, which tells you it's pretty chilly. So when those nights start staying around that, 55 degree, say the water's 55 degrees, the nighttime lows are 55. That water's not going to drop anymore. It's going to stay right there and it's going to slowly start building. That's what pushes those fish up shallower. I think that allows everything to start stabilizing.
Yeah, those warm nights in the spring are key, and
definitely
they really allow the warmth of the day to stay there, and heck, we're almost to April. So it's interesting. It was interesting too. We were talking earlier that I didn't watch any of the coverage. So, but a buddy of mine who was watching the coverage from down there at Sam Rayburn was saying that per that coverage that the fish down there hadn't even spawned yet. So that I found that really interesting, and I think that maybe that's an effect of all that goofy, freezing cold weather we had, which Texas was certainly affected by.
Yeah, and you brought up something we were talking earlier about. We were talking about how the ice may affect the spawn, because this is probably the coldest winter we've had in quite some time. A lot of the lakes had ice over them for like 3 weeks or so. And then the incubation period of the egg, because they, fish start making their eggs in late winter, right? Or like early winter, I guess.
Yeah. And I don't know the biology between that, but we can leave that question to Sean Hurst or Menendez or a biologist, but we all know that in the wintertime, whatever the process is, there's a normal process for those eggs to develop. And we had some really strange late winter cold weather. Hell, it was 0 to 3 straight weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was below freezing for
February.
3 weeks.
Yeah, and to the point where the lakes froze, and that was during a period that in February where a lot of times we're going the right direction, and those fish are doing their normal increments towards spring, and that all got put on hold for a few weeks. So I'm curious. I'm not a biologist, I don't know. Maybe it has no effect, I don't know, but I'm kind of curious to see, just observationally wise, how that plays with the spawn. Maybe it all stages them together and they're all going to run up there at once. I don't know, but it's the first time I remember conditions quite like this, as far as a setup into the spawn. I don't remember it having the same scenario before.
Yeah, I think we're going to see we'll see a little push of some spawners next week, I would imagine. That water temperature is close enough. We may not actually see them because there's so much staying in the lake, but we'll probably be catching a few of them without really knowing that they're actually up there spawning. Because they're, a lot of times those big ones will sneak up there early. Like the major spawn will be April and May, but then those big females will sneak up there in March and get it done and get out of there before people even catch on.
You never know they were there.
Right. That's why they're big, because they're smart. Cody Arnold says he's hitting Lake of the Ozarks tomorrow. Man, good luck, dude. And then he says that they got the floodgates open at Lake of the Ozarks. I just checked the water level a while ago before I got on here, and it's at 656.78. So, just basically 4 feet below. Well, 3 and some change below summer pool, but they're pulling a lot of current, so that really changes that. That lake is, it was super, super low. When we fished that Toyota series down there, it was, I think it was 7 feet low or something like that. It was a lot lower than people had seen it in, recent past. It looks like it's coming up, but they're, they probably want to keep it down. I don't know when they actually pull up the full pool. I would imagine the holiday there when people take their boats out of storage. It's usually just a slow, gradual pull. I know at Kentucky Lake, they start kind of letting it rise right now, and they try to get it up there like Memorial Day, to full pull, but just a slow, steady rise. But when they look in the forecast and they see this rain, they got to keep, got to keep pulling it down and stuff and keep it low in case the floods come. I got some other lake levels, and I talked to Mike Russell. He was going to come on tonight. Mike Russell is from Bag 5 Baits, and he lives on Big Bear down at Kentucky Lake. And I called him earlier today just to kind of get a Kentucky Lake report. And he was going to come on, but he's doing a little seminar for the Marshall County high school fishing team, I believe. It's a high school fishing team down there in Marshall County, Kentucky. So he wasn't available tonight. But he did tell me that the water is really stained. He said it's about a foot visibility in Big Bear. And let's see, I looked up the lake levels and the water temp. And at Ken Lake, the water temp's 59 degrees on Kentucky Lake. And this information comes from the Hancock Biological Station. And Mike said if you want to get some current information on water temps, that Hancock Biological Station is a good reference for current water temperatures.
59, that's pretty good.
That's really good. Yeah. Yeah. And they're pulling.
I'm surprised, actually.
They're pulling a lot of water right now. It is, let's see, I had it written down here. Oh, the level is 356. So summer pool's 359, winter pool's 355, and right now it's at 356, and they're discharging 197,000. So it is smoking, and they're pulling hard. And over the next, I looked at the future, and I think over the next couple of days, they're supposed to be pulling anywhere between 170 and 190. And that's ripping. I mean, that's a ton of current, usually like 60,000 is when you start getting that good ledge bite. That's enough current to kind of make those fish push up tight to the bars and cover a little bit. So yeah, it's ripping down there. And he said that there's no, go ahead.
Of course, they're making room. Of course, that water flows from south to north. Basically, so they're making room for all that water from Gunnersville and Pickwick and all that stuff we've been watching, all the storms they've been having down there. So all that water goes through there, Tennessee River, whatever. So they got a lot of water on the way still.
Yeah, and then you got I always forget about it, but you got all the snow melt and stuff up north that starts happening. So that's all making its way down here. But he said there was a moving bait bite right now in the midsection of the lake. So just, crankbaits and chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, that kind of stuff. And fishing has been pretty good. So that's kind of the little report that I got from him. And he did say he would jump on here next week. So next week we'll have Mike on here for a little bit. And I also contacted Eric Prey, who's works with Focused Fishing Guide Service out of Table Rock Lake, and he's going to be a guest hopefully next week and jump on here for about 10-15 minutes and give us a Table Rock Lake update, which is nice because there's a BFL coming up on the 17th. I think it's actually 17th and 18th. They stacked them up because they canceled the first one due to the lake being froze up. So that'll be good to hear, almost current fishing report. At least we can have an idea of which way the fish are going and how they're going to be setting up and stuff for that tournament. I'll be fishing that one, so I'm looking forward to that. And Clearwater Lake is another lake that's around us. It is up really high right now. Full pool is 494, and it's sitting at 423. So it's, what is that, like 27 feet above summer pool?
Say that again.
So it's,
what was regular pool?
Full pool, like summer pool, is 494, and right now it is at 523.
Oh my goodness!
So it's really high, really high and really muddy. And then Wapapello, Doug Cheatham sent me a text yesterday, and he said it's like 6.5 feet high. So those lakes are. They got a river that runs into them that's got a lot of drainage, so it doesn't take a whole lot of rain to make that sucker swell and the lake to get up really, really high, especially Clearwater. Clearwater it fluctuates. I think we talked about that last week. It'll go up, it'll go up 25 feet in a couple of days, and then they'll suck the bottom out of it and it'll be back to summer pool. It just fluctuates up and down. It's pretty crazy.
Huh.
So
did you get a water temperature on those by any chance?
Let's see. I did not. I didn't have a chance to, other than Kentucky Lake, it was 59 degrees.
That kind of gives you a good general between Kentucky Lake's 59, Lake of Egypt's 58, Cedar's 52, 53, somewhere in there. It kind of gives you a pretty good baseline, kind of a feel for where we're at. I guarantee Grassy, DK, Kincaid got to be really similar to Cedar. They're not going to be a lot different. You know, and Egypt is power plant lake, and you know, even with the diminished heat going in the lake, it's, you know, it thawed out a week ahead of all the other lakes, and that gave it a chance to get going. And so crab, I know crab was about, so I did get a real short report from crab. Crab was in that same area. Fishing was slow at crab the other day, I hear, but they did catch a few. So I
Hellbass says the ice is out by him this weekend. So Hellbass is up there in Minnesota. Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Is he in the Twin Cities? Hellbass, you in the Twin Cities? I'm assuming.
Can't remember exactly where he is. I should know. I saw him put up here earlier, Kincaid with a C versus Kincaid with a K. Those are two different lakes. He was supposed to meet. He fished the Bass Nation Championship down there at Pickwick, and on his way back up to Minnesota, we were going to try to get together and do a collab video. But he went to Kincaid with the C, which is up there by Springfield, I think, instead of Kincaid.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so it didn't work out. But let me go back. Let me get down through these comments. They're kind of starting to get away from us. Denny wants to know any reports from Lake of the Ozarks. Denny, I am going to be reaching out to somebody from down there. Maybe Jack Uxa, I think is how you say that. Jack's Guide Service. That's a possibility. Possibly Jim Deal. I'm not quite sure. Like I said earlier, I got a hold of Eric Prey today. I didn't have a chance to make contact with anybody else, but I'm definitely working on that. And we're going to try to get, what we're going to try to do is get one or two people from, say, Table Rock, Lake of the Ozarks, Bull Shows, Kentucky Lake, and have kind of a rotation every other week. Somebody that will have a good fishing report from all those lakes will be able to jump on here and just kind of fill us in on what's going on. So I'm working on that. Just going to take just another week or so to get it going. Smallwater Charter says we are chest deep in good fishing. Weather has been great. That's good to hear, man. So what's up, Mike? Cody says he's jealous. Okay, Cody says he saw they were pulling 30K this afternoon at Lake of the Ozarks. I know that was when we had Lawson Hibden on our live stream, our Monday night live stream. He was talking about the reason that the fishing had gotten a little bit tougher at Lake of the Ozarks because the current was running. So the current was running for an extended period in the spring of last year. And so many fish were out on those main lake points and feeding all the time that the fishing was just phenomenal. And there was a ton of fish being caught for months and months. And it kind of made it, once everything kind of everything kind of quieted down, it made the fishing a lot tougher. Let's see. Said he had 20 pounds for first on Saturday and 16.3 for fifth. Nice, man. Good work, dude. Solid bags. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get back down there. I really like that lake, though. I've got to fish it a couple times a year for the last couple of years, and each time I go down there, I like it.
Can everybody hear Gabe? I can't hear you all of a sudden.
You can't hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah.
You can't hear me?
I'm going to sign out and sign back in.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Jay said he got on the hog pin yesterday and had one big bite and missed it. Headed to Table Rock tomorrow, man. Good luck. Yeah, Jay just got a new boat. So congratulations to Jay. He got a brand new Nitro, I think it's E21. So he's going to go down there and break it in. Go down there, pick it up, break it in. Doug's ready for some tips because he's got a tournament this week. I can't help you over there, man. I could probably help you over here a little bit. Start with Cedar. I'm way behind on this. I apologize. So the Angler's Choice, I think the first Angler's Choice of the year is on Cedar. And I think you guys are going to do fine. You guys that are fishing that, I think things are starting to turn around. and that tough bite is going to get real good. There's Ron again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's
Your
my
internet?
internet. Yeah, it just gets goofy sometimes. So if I ever just sign out and sign back in, that's all it is.
Okay, I'm trying to go through these comments so I can get kind of current. Okay, here we go. Wade's got a Cedar Lake report. He said the north end of Cedar was muddy, 1 foot visibility, 45 degrees after cold front weekend. Nothing happened shallow. Saw fish offshore on electronics. Yeah, I was seeing a little bit of that too, Wade. I was seeing some fish out off that grass line. You know, one thing that kind of happens, and this is something that Morgan Taylor was talking about when we had him on the stream last week, is when that water goes up, a lot of times those fish will stay where they were at. And you want to go up there and flip that shallow flooded cover. Sometimes they will go, but if that's not happening, a lot of times they're out to where they were at before the water went up. And I remember the first time I kind of heard that was in a state federation tournament down at Table Rock. The lake had went up like 16 or 17 feet and it got really, really high. And some of the guys that were in my bass club had been down there pre-fishing for a couple of days and they were catching them good, but they were fishing the old shoreline. You know, those fish had stayed or within, you know, where they would normally be when the water was at normal level was where they were still at. So they just had another 18 feet of water over their heads and they did really good. I mean, we had a pretty good finish that year and it was just because of that tip that those guys discovered fishing that old shoreline. So that's something that happens. I know when Chad was on here, he was talking about that. He fished an area, he found an area in practice and during the tournament, he could not get bit fishing shallow. You know, he's a Southern Illinois fisherman, so he was automatically drawn up to that shallow flooded cover. And he knew the fish were in there, you know, and the lake had went up like 7 foot. Basically, they got to practice and then they canceled the first day of tournament. They canceled the second day of the tournament. And he didn't go out the third day of practice because it was just, there was like tornado warnings and stuff. That I think that was when you were at Gunnersville, Ron. It was that same day.
We hightailed it home.
Yeah. So he hadn't been on the lake in 3 days. So when he went back to his area, the water was really, really up and he saw all this fresh, shallow stuff and he wanted to go in there, flip it. He caught one keeper for like 3 pounds. Well, the next day he thought about it and he said, I'm not doing anything that I did the day before. And he pulled out deeper and caught 22 something pounds. So those fish, even though the water had went up, they had stayed where they were before the water had went up. That's hard to do, but that's what separates the pros from people like me. Let's see. Everybody's talking about the Lake of the Ozarks. It's getting bottom ripped out of it. Mario says he just got home from whitewater rafting the Colorado River. Something everybody needs to try. That's sweet, man. Have you ever been whitewater rafting, Ron?
No, not on purpose.
Yeah.
No, sir.
I went 2 years ago for the first time. We floated the Cache to Poudre River. We'd go to Estes Park, Colorado, and the Cache River floats through Fort Collins, which is basically if you head east out of Estes Park about 20 miles, you come to the town of Loveland, and then directly north of Loveland is Fort Collins. So between Loveland and Estes Park is the Big Thompson River. It flows through the Big Thompson Canyon. It's beautiful. That's where I trout fish when I go there. But the next river north is the Cache to Poudre. And we went whitewater rafting up there. And dude, it was cool, man. You kind of got to let it happen once you get in that raft. You know, you got a guide with you and he knows what he's doing and stuff. He was funny. I asked him how long he'd been doing that. He's like, oh, this is my second week. And he'd really been doing it for like 9 years. I asked him, this is my second week. And man, I was nervous. And he started laughing. He's like, I'm just kidding, man. I've been doing this forever. But good times, man. Let's see. Okay, headwaters down in Florida. Smallwater Charter says they're in the middle of the spawn down there. So I almost threw a frog the other day, Ron. I almost threw a frog.
I think you could over here right now. I don't know why they wouldn't eat it, but that's just me. I'd probably some spots I could have thrown it and got bit. You want to talk a little bit about some of the baits that we've been using?
Heck yeah. Give me one more second. Let me get to the bottom of these. Todd says he was at Cedar Saturday and he didn't get a bite. Mario says he's ready to go fishing now after he got back from the whitewater rafting. See, Clark caught a 3 and a 6-pounder yesterday at Rayburn. Nice, man. That we were talking about that Rayburn tournament a while ago that the MLF BPT was down there, and it seemed like it's fishing pretty tough. So, yeah. Tim McCoy, what's up? I'm almost there. Oh, Tom's on the mend, man. Look, he said, guys, haven't done much since last Thursday. Had 6 teeth pulled and got a new upper denture. I did go out and fish yesterday from 1 to 3. I caught 5. Cool.
There you go.
I was complaining about the rain. Mike said he caught a 4.5 and a 4.25 at the local Duty Park Lake this week. Windy riprap shoreline with a 1/4 ounce 1-knocker. Water probably low 50s. Good deal. Yeah, man, those little farm ponds and stuff, they get going a couple weeks before the bigger ponds go. There was a couple days where those fish were right on the bank. And this is like 3 weeks ago, and they were right on the bank in this little pond behind my house. What's up, Jay? Actually, you know what, Jay? I wrote down, you sent me a fishing report, but you didn't send the lake. So I'd actually texted you back to try to get the lake information. Yeah, that's that comment. This is the comment from Wade that I was talking about. We need consistent 50-degree nights to see improvement. That's very true.
Yeah. Agree with that. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we're about that. It could still get cold technically this time of year, but hopefully we're past it.
What's up, Sean and Hank Snow Outdoors? Let's see. Other knee problems. Okay. It's me wants to know, what are the baits to catch bass on Lake Wapapella right now? Well, you Lake Wapapella guys that are out there, I know I saw Auto Tree on here. That's Doug Cheatham. He would know better than I do. I needed to actually I talked to him the other day. I didn't ask him about the fishing report. That lake is up quite a bit. So I imagine right now it's going to be about keying in on those creek channels that come off the main river, because those fish are wanting to move, they're wanting to move back to spawn. And so I would imagine they're going to be going in those creek channels and looking for those shallow rocky flats back there to set up. But they'll want a place that they can pull up, and when the water starts dropping, they can get back down in it. So you're going to want to have deep water nearby. I don't think you're not going to find them too far off the creek channel for too long right now, because the water is being so high. Those fish, they're locals, man. This happens every year. You'll see this with just about any kind of river impoundment. You'll see it on Kentucky Lake and Pickwick and stuff. They don't go up there typically and start spawning when the water's really high. They know there's a certain level. I don't know how they know it, but there's a certain level that they wait for it to fall back down to. They'll just hold their eggs until it's time. But I think they're going to be back in that last, the staging areas, one of their last stops, maybe the deeper creek, the last deep water bend in the back of a cove or something. But they'll run up there and they'll feed a little bit, but they're not going to be totally committed to that. So me personally, if I was going down there, I don't know the lake that good, but I would be looking for those kind of areas, and I'd be power fishing. I'd be covering water, spinnerbait, crankbait, chatterbait, swim jig, whatever you've got confidence. And I would just try to cover as many of those high percentage areas as possible. you know,
And I would say in any lake right now, if you find one, I wouldn't move real fast once you found one or two.
good idea.
Fish
Good
seem
point.
to be good up. If you find one or you get a bite, and even get a bite and miss the fish, that's when I would slow down and make sure you nosed around and they're pretty good before you moved on.
Because we've been seeing that. I know when me and you went fishing on Egypt, right as the ice was coming off, it was like it's been like that since then. You know, you get a little group, you'll catch 3 or 4 or 5 fish, and then you won't catch anything for a long, long time.
Yeah, and it's and you don't know when it's going to happen always. I mean,
right?
You got your high percentage areas, but when right now, that's still the case for me here at Egypt, is when I find one, I can usually catch another one, fairly close by. So
yeah, Jay says. So Jay sent me a report, and it was on Sparta City Lake, which that's a lake I have not visited. I need to go check that out. But he said the temperatures were 48 to 60, so big swing there. Yeah, the water was really, really muddy. And I think he said he caught 4 fish. He caught a couple nice ones, but he was throwing the Thunder Thumper, the big spinnerbait, and a square bill. So that's you're seeing a kind of a common trait with all these lakes. It's kind of a power fishing deal right now. Your chatterbaits and your crankbaits and spinnerbaits and that kind of thing. Excuse me.
Yeah, muddy water, or at least stained water, in probably every single lake we have. And applications that apply to dirty water.
Yeah, Bill, we're still waiting for a Kincaid report. We were hoping somebody would jump on here and give a recent one. The last one I have is probably a week old, and Kincaid was really, really muddy still. So I don't know that it's cleared up any. And I don't know. I would assume that the water temperatures are going to be probably low to mid 50s, just like all the other lakes around here. And it's got to be getting, I think, Kincaid doesn't get super muddy all the time. So I think that muddy water probably messes those fish up a little bit more than it does in some of the other lakes. But I would imagine it's got to be kind of starting to clear up by now.
Yeah, the no wake area fish are used to some dirty water.
Right.
And I would say no matter how muddy the no wake area got, the day that it got a notch clearer than however muddy it got, which I assume it was probably chocolate milk, you'd be able to catch fish in the no wake area there at the end of the lake. Those fish do see a lot of dirty water in their lifetime. You're right, on the rest of the lake, it tends to be really clear with all the good weed growth. And the one thing I've noticed, and this would hold true in any lake, is when that water comes up with these rains, and if your lake has a good spillway, all of our lakes have good spillways with the exception of Cedar Lake. It drains very slowly. But Kincaid drains quickly, Egypt, Grassy, DK, they all drain really quickly. So what happens, the water comes up, and then these lakes that have good weeds are a good filter of that dirty water. You'll notice that the weed line, as that water retracts through those weeds, that band of water around that weed line will often be the first water in the lake to clear up. Also, all the way in the back of the creek will clear up first also. And so those are, as soon as you see the water dropping, that's a good clue that you should know there's a band of clear water starting to develop along the shoreline that has some good weeds on it. And very often those are areas I tend to focus on, sometimes after a heavy rain. And, if it's been a situation where the water's been a little too dirty, that's usually a window of opportunity right there as soon as that starts to happen.
Mm-hmm.
When you'll see a band of not clear water, but clearer water start to develop along the shoreline, along those weeds, as that water gets pulled back through there.
Adam said he fished Cedar from 1:30 to 6 p.m. yesterday, not a bite. I believe it. It's feast and famine right now.
Yeah, I've heard Yeah, I've heard several reports on Cedar like that. Now today I got a good report on Cedar. Today the fishing report today on Cedar was cast lure in water, retrieve fish. So you know, we don't get enough of those. None of
And
us
I'm
do.
working. I had to work.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised. And I had basically the same report from a buddy here at Egypt. So today I think the fish bit today.
Okay, here's your Wapapello report right here from Doug. Lake is 6 feet over summer pool, pitching the brush back in the creeks with your favorite plastics or jigs.
Okay.
So that's going to be some legit stuff right there because he's down there quite a bit. So Brandon says, how many tourneys on Egypt this Sunday? My club is coming down with 10 to 15 boats.
Sunday, none that I know, but Saturday is Angler's Choice and a large high school tournament. What large high school tournament means, I don't know as far as number of boats, but I can tell you Angler's Choice will be 50 to 60 boats. I'm going to guess 40 to 50 boats in the high school tournament. So Egypt is going to get run over on Saturday, but I do not know of any tournaments other than the one that I've just mentioned for Sunday. But Saturday will affect Sunday on what those fish do.
Definitely. It's getting that time of year, man. You know, it's funny when I was at Cedar, the last time I was at Cedar. Do what?
Guys are excited to go fishing. That's okay.
Yeah.
You can't get mad at the lakes being crowded. You can, but guys, we're all out there for the same reason. So
yeah, that's exactly right. So Ben Dover, man, I love that name. He's going to Kincaid Saturday. Any advice? Yeah, we kind of just talked about that a little bit. I like throwing that, like, here's what I like throwing over there when the water's really muddy like that is this, I kind of call this the Thunder Thumper. Yeah. And it's, this is just a 1/2 ounce Cumberland Pro bullet head spinnerbait. And I put a size 7 Colorado blade on there, just a brass Colorado blade. And I tied you don't have to do this, but I like the round rubber when the water's colder. And I would say right now the water's warm enough to where that round rubber's not critical by any means. But when it's down in the 40s, I think it makes a big difference. So just a white and chartreuse. And then I just put a big swim bait on there. This is a Berkeley grass pig. It's power bait too, so it's got a little bit of scent on it. But I like that. I like a big swim bait on there for a couple reasons. It certainly creates a really big profile coming through the water when that water's 2 foot of visibility or less. Especially like right now, we've got water clarity that's 1 foot of visibility or 6 inches of visibility. I think that big profile just gives them something bigger to key in on. I really do.
Yep.
Really do. Yeah, it looks like a big gizzard shad. And I think it pushes more water. You've got, of course, you've got this big thumper blade, but this also adds to, it's going to push more water and it creates a little bit of lift. So you can slow this down a lot more with a big, some kind of a trailer. It just makes it a little bit more buoyant and allows you to kind of slow that stuff around the cover. And I think that can be a key. A lot of times they want something really fast, but a lot of times they want something just kind of sneaking through there. And I think right now with the mood of the fish, I had a pretty tough day over there. Ron was talking about sometimes you can catch 15, 20, and sometimes it's hard to get a bite. And can't remember who was on here. They said they didn't get a bite over at Cedar. So there's a lot of days that are just tough. And I think keeping the bait in the fish's face a little bit longer maybe we'll get you some extra bites. But this is something that I would be having, going to Kincaid right here. This is something that I would definitely have on my deck.
No doubt. Another thing, well, all these lakes right now, obviously the chatterbait is playing. On Egypt, I like white on Egypt. I always have. I probably throw white more than I should just because I was taught 30, 40 years ago to throw white on Egypt. So I don't think about it anymore. I just use a white chatterbait and I catch them on it. But one thing that I've noticed, and this with this dirty water, fish are cover oriented. So they'll pull up in the available weeds or wood. And if there's a shortcoming on the chatterbait, it doesn't come through wood very well. I mean, it will, and I'll throw it on wood. But if you're specifically targeting wood, one thing that I haven't talked about a lot that might help some guys is the rage blade. This rage blade here will come through wood. You can drag it through wood like a crankbait, and has a very similar, it's a bladed jig, basically has a very similar action to the chatterbait, but it will come through wood 3 times as good as a chatterbait. And in a dirty water situation, if you're in a creek, the no wake area in Kincaid, for instance, where there's a lot of times a wood oriented bite, this old rage blade will outperform a chatterbait simply because it will perform better in the cover. I don't think it has a feather act. It has a little bit different action, but this time of year, oftentimes I'll have a chatterbait and a rage blade tied on, and I'll throw that chatterbait through the weeds. It snaps through the weeds really well. But if I'm focusing on some blowdowns or stuff like that, then the rage blade is a more efficient presentation. Notice this one's red. That's no secret anymore either. But that rage blade might put a fish in the boat where otherwise you might be hung up on the log in chasing the chatterbait. So that might help somebody.
That's a good tip, man. I've got a bunch of those rage blades. They're now, one thing I'd have noticed with those is they like to ride a little higher in the water. Like they want to come up shallower, say a 1/2 ounce rage blade versus a 1/2 ounce chatterbait. The rage blade's wants to rise a little bit more. So,
yeah.
And another thing, I was going to say, another thing with a chatterbait and fishing wood is the kind of trailer that you put on it is kind of key. Something that will help you come through wood a lot better on a chatterbait is a crawl type, trailer, something that's flat versus like a swim bait. So let me rig one up and I'll kind of show you what I'm getting at here. But if you have a swim bait on there, it's basically cylindrical. It's round. So when it comes across cover, it's going to have a tendency to just kind of roll over. It just naturally wants to roll over. But if you've got something that's kind of flat, like a beaver or a rage bug or something, it doesn't want to roll. It's got a flat side on it. So you got more surface area. It kind of helps it come through the wood and over the tree limbs and stuff a whole lot better. It really does make a difference. It's just something I've learned the last couple of years. And basically any kind of, I fish a rage crawl a lot, especially when the water's warmer. When that water gets up in the 70s, I like a trailer that's got a lot of action. Right now, I think the swim bait is probably one of the best because it's more subtle. A fluke, you can put a fluke on there if the fish are really, really finicky. But I do think that a trailer that has a flat bottom helps you come over that wood a little bit better. Because, man, chatterbaits they're notorious for getting hung up in wood. It's super frustrating, and it's like you get a groove going and stuff, and then all of a sudden you hit a piece of wood and you got to go in there and dig it out. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. A lot of times in this dirty water, that's where that good one's sitting. That 4-pounder sitting on that. He's bellied up on that piece of wood in that dirty water. That's home. Heck, might be where he or she spawns too. Eventually. Right.
So what are some of the trailers you like to put on your chatterbaits? We'll run through a couple baits here, but what are some of the trailers you like on the chatterbait?
I like the skinny dipper. I don't get too complicated. Um, probably 80% of the time, I'll throw that skinny dipper on there. I usually bite off a little bit of the head and shorten the profile a little bit. And that's my deal. And then if I'm not catching them on a chatterbait, then I'm usually off to, quite honestly, if I'm not catching them on that, I'm probably going to switch baits rather than play with the trailer a lot. I don't spend a whole lot of time. I'll do what you talked about, and I'll put actually one of the flat-sided trailers that you just talked about. I'll use the old school salt cross, and partly because I just got a bunch of them, and it works just fine. It doesn't have a whole lot of action to it. We're talking about a relatively cool water period, so we're not throwing stuff with a wild action anyway. And it works just fine.
So this is the little this is the little dipper Ron was talking about, and white trash is probably, that's usually the color I throw on a white chatterbait. It's just a good color. It's got a little bit of fleck in there, but that's what you're looking at on. That's the little dipper, and then they make the regular size one. But I use this thing on just all kinds of stuff. It's super multi-purpose.
Yeah, it's kind of the WD-40 of plastic baits. You use it on everything. When the water gets warmer, kind of post-spawn, I will go to a curly tail trailer, like a curly tail frog trailer, like in a post-spawn situation when you want a little more action. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, this works really well on crab orchards sometimes post-spawn. Don't really know why, but it does. It works for me. But I usually won't put that on a bait till the water's warmer.
Yeah. So, I use, like you said, I use the little dipper a lot. Is something I'll use. If I want a bigger profile, I'll go to the full size dipper, what is called the skinny dipper. Video here. I need to go get on my kids. I think they're up there. I think they got 3 computers up there running, streaming off the Wi-Fi right now.
Doing homework.
Yeah, right. They're probably playing Roblox or something, video games. They're sucking all the juice.
Yeah, they got you paused up there. Well,
they're sucking all my juice.
Yeah. There you are. You calling them?
Yeah, I'm calling them, but they won't answer. They're scared. I could yell at them real loud. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? They're not answering. We'll fight our way through it. But another one that I use a lot is a rage crawl. Another multi-purpose bait. I'm sure everybody on here uses rage crawls, but they like that. Like I said earlier, when that water gets up in the 70s, I like those crazy legs just flipping around. Seems like it draws some strikes. And I'll throw a fluke on there too. See if I got one rigged up with a fluke. I don't know that I've got one here. I like that fluke on kind of a smaller chatterbait. When you get down there to like the 1/4 ounce size. Yeah, here we go. So that's just a regular size fluke on there. And if you haven't put a fluke on a chatterbait, it looks really good. It does a really good job. It just really keeps that shad, shape. That's another one that I go to. And a speed crawl is another one that I'll throw on there. I'll throw a June bug speed crawl, green pumpkin speed crawl, or a white speed crawl, depending on obviously the color of the chatterbait. And I think that's really all that I put on there. what is it, the Zaco or the Zaco? You know, I've got some of those. I've thrown those around.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I don't get too crazy with it. It's, you know,
Dave was
kind of either.
throwing this razor shad. This is a Z-Man razor shad, and it's got a lot of action. It's got a ton of, you know, it not a lot of action, but it's got the right kind of action and super durable. You know, it's that elastic plastic. Action, and you'll melt all your crap, which is why I don't use a lot of Z-Man plastics, because
I keep all my Ned rigs separate from everything.
Yeah, well, I get, you know, I'll take one off and I'll throw it in the bottom of the boat, and it'll roll up against like a spinnerbait skirt or something.
Toast. Yeah. Yeah. Your kids are doing a lot of homework.
Jump on them real quick. Talk about we were going to get into the jackhammer versus, you know, like the regular chatterbait, the different blade vibrations and action and all that. And I'll be right back, guys.
All right. I'll talk about chatterbait. One thing that you got your jackhammer, which is what I throw the most, the jackhammer. And the reason I throw the jackhammer the most is because it has the best, I think it has the best components, and it has the best hook. So that's all I need to know. I do like this Elite one, and it's got a little different. It's got the wire tie on the front, as opposed to the clip. Now, I haven't had any trouble with the clip, but I know, let's see. Oh, yeah, there we go. It's just got a little wire deal on it, as opposed to the clip on the jackhammer. Now, I've never had any trouble with the clip on the jackhammer. I know Gabe has. I don't know. He must set the hook harder than me. I don't know. But some guys like that. The other is the Stealth. And I haven't fished these Stealths a lot. They got the little clear blade on there. I don't know. See that right there, little clear blade. I have thrown them a little bit. You got to get these baits started a little. It's the nice thing about the jackhammer. You don't have to work real hard to get it started. The Stealth bait, you do a little bit. And I'm not sure yet where this Stealth jackhammer, I think they call it a Stealth jackhammer. I'm not sure where this fits in my chatterbait arsenal yet. I haven't thrown it enough. I'm kind of wondering if this might be a little bit of a smallmouth catcher. I don't know. It's a much more subdued action in the water. It might be good during all this fishing pressure. You know, I need to try it during all this fishing pressure that we're having. Maybe it's something that fish haven't seen quite as much. It has a little different connection. It has just an oval split ring, basically, to tie the line to. But it is a much more subdued action. Don't know quite where it fits yet in my fishing game, but you know, I'm just like everyone else. I saw something neat, I had to buy a few of them, so I did. But
yeah, Jay wants to.
I don't get. Have you had a chance to use the Stealth much yet, Gabe?
If I would use it, I know it's got a more of a finessey, you know, vibration to it. I've watched a few videos on it, but I think I would probably go to, you know, a different bait, maybe. I don't know. You know, some of that stuff, and I could be totally wrong, but some of
Gabe's froze up on my end.
yeah, am I back now?
I don't know. I don't know whether to jump in, and I'm not sure whether to jump in and talk when that happens. I don't know.
I think our I think our audio keeps going, but you know, the video just cuts out, and I don't know what it is. Like, one of the, you know, the kids are in bed right now, so we must just be having some kind of interference.
The weather. It's really windy here. It could be the. I was reading Jay Beckett's comment on there about modifying the chatterbait. I haven't messed with the snaps at all, Jay, but one thing I have noticed is the skirt density on a chatterbait really, really affects where that bait rides in the water. And I noticed that just when I first started fishing a chatterbait. But you know, you get a chatterbait, you're catching a bunch of fish. You know, before you know it, half your skirt's ate up. Well, it seemed like that chatterbait was catching more fish the more I fished it. And that chatterbait, the lighter, the less dense that skirt got, the deeper it would track. And I noticed I took off an old chatterbait I was catching fish, and I put on a new one with the full skirt. And I was shocked at the difference in how that rode in the water. So I was like, ding, 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 ding. I got to pay attention to that. And the other day I was fishing, and I took a brand new chatterbait and I cut half the skirt off. And it really makes a big difference on that chatterbait of where that rides in the water. And, you know, that's the number one question as far as I'm concerned of any lure at any time of the year is how deep, you know, how deep are you catching them? And so that skirt thing, or taking it off and putting a swim bait on there, really changes the deal on that. But that's probably the biggest thing I do on chatterbait is I modify the skirt to adjust where I want that bait.
Yep. You know, you can even take the skirt completely off and put a swim bait or whatever you want on there to give it a different look and get it a little bit deeper. Ben says, it gives it a completely different look, different vibration. Ben says, do you know of a swim bait that's as good as a Kitech, but doesn't tear up as much? I mean, I use the Skinny Dipper and the Little Dipper a lot, and they're fairly durable. I would say you could probably get into that Z-Man stuff, that Elastec. That's obviously not going to tear up, and they've got some swim baits.
Biospawn is a good one.
Biospawn's good. A local company, Hawgz Custom Baits, they hand pour some plastics, and their plastic has a lot of action and it's pretty durable. So that's another option. But yeah, that Kitech, man, it's got its own, you know, it's got its own little action, but they can be fragile. Fortunately, that's why they're so good a lot of times. Yeah, they do work. It's give and take with just about everything.
Yeah.
Big Bite Baits Kamikaze is T. Harris's chatterbait trailer of choice. It's another good one. Hog Farmer makes one. That's a good trailer. There's you can put a lot of things on the back of a chatterbait, and you just have to see how it affects the action. You know, you just gotta kind of put it on there and see what it looks like. I mean, I know there's rules of thumb, but you still just have to put it on there and see. And then a lot of times, if it's not acting like you want it, you can actually trim the sides down, change the profile of it. There's a lot of just little subtle things you can do with a pair of scissors to change up that action. River Ben Basson says the Guggen Squad swim baits are pretty durable. I know their Bandito bugs are not.
Yeah, I remember you and Greg talking about that on one of your shows about that Bandito bug tore up or whatever.
Yeah, but boy, it's a great bait. It catches fish for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Wade reminded me the white straight split tail, like the Zoom split tail, the old spinnerbait trailer, is a real good chatterbait trailer. And then
that's what I have on my Rage Blade, is just the split tail thing that came with it, and that works really good at times. So
yep, that's a good one too. There's a lot of them. You just gotta play around. You know, some days they'll want something. Usually the action is which would be some kind of a smaller swim bait or something that's really crazy, like some kind of a crawl trailer, like a rage crawl. A Z crawl is another good one that I've thrown on there. And I know you talked about the jackhammer.
Yeah.
Humming quicker, and you can keep it going at a slower pace and still get that rod. You know, your rod's still doing this, which is critical.
Yeah. I mean, the jackhammer, just as far as components go, I mean, solid hook. It, you know, as soon as you start to retrieve, it's doing its thing. It's a very, very easy bait to fish. I guess that's why it catches so many fish.
This is a podcast live stream combination thing. So we got the live stream right now, and then we'll turn into a podcast here for a couple seconds, and then we'll go back to the live stream. So here's a good question. Barry Leonard says, did you hear me?
No, but I just read the comment about how long to leave a log after you get hung up in there. Is that the?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, there are times those fish don't go anywhere. I've got hung up in a log before, or a piece of cover, and had the guy next to me while I was hung up catch a fish out of the same whatever it is I was hung up in. So I think part of it depends on the mood of the fish. And that's probably just a judgment call every day. But if you have a piece of cover, a log that you are confident has fish, and you get hung up and you think you screwed it up, I give it a rest for a while and fish around the cove or whatever you're fishing, and I would go back to it if it's something that you think that will produce a fish. I don't think you have to wait real long. If there's an active fish there, you could probably still catch it.
Yeah, and I think it depends. In, I think that fish is more likely to stay in there because it feels secure. The wind blows heavy, the water's banging against the side of that. They experience that all the time, so they're used to a little bit of movement. But I think if you've got a smaller bush, like say some buckbrush or something, and you get really caught up in there and you're really popping it and rocking it, that might possibly freak the fish out and make it vacate. And maybe you might come back 15, 20 minutes later and it'll set back up in there. But I think it kind of depends on, how much you're really rocking their home. Let me get to some of these questions here, and then probably talk about maybe just a bait or two more, and then we'll. What happened? Okay, we got some people talking about, this is kind of an auto retrieve. I'm going to try to fish it too. Talking about Wapapello, you think they will bite in that cold mud? Also, or everybody's going to count. You have to really be paying attention and focus, because you'll get that bite. If you're, you go a couple hours without a bite, your mind kind of starts wandering. And then all of a sudden you get a bite that may be, you may only get 3 bites that day, and you just missed one of your bites.
Keep losing you.
It's crazy.
I'm going to sign out and sign back in real quick.
Okay. Okay. Jeremiah Caldwell says, we'll get Ron back in here for one more session and then we'll bail out. So if you got any more questions, go ahead and dump them on here. And if you got any more fishing reports, dump them on here too. And this has been great. This is kind of what we're trying to do. We got several people that have put some fishing reports on here. And, I'll say this again, as you guys are out there this weekend fishing bodies of water and you come and you've got a fishing report or lake conditions, I really encourage you to go ahead and shoot it over to me. Like, send me a DM on Facebook at Gabe Montgomery Fishing, 10 Horse Monty, RD Outdoors, or 10 Horse Monty 6 on Instagram. And then what I kind of want to do is kind of what I did tonight, just write this stuff down. And then fortunately, people have been coming on here and giving some, fishing reports, even on the stuff that I'd written down. So that's awesome. So we're getting multiple fishing reports on some of the same lakes, and you can kind of link them all up. But we're trying to just create a community where people can get on here and share all this stuff. And I think it's starting to build. It's kind of cool. What do you got there, man? A buzzbait?
I got myself buzzbait, lunker lure. You started saying something about different lures. Now, I haven't caught a fish on this yet, but that might be different tomorrow. This bait has to be, I'd say it's probably already been right for it. I just haven't thrown it at the right time. That'll catch a big one.
The other day, Dave that I was fishing with, he tied one on and threw it. He actually borrowed mine. He had forgot his. Yeah. And I was just waiting for something to blow up on it. And they never did.
Yeah, it's coming. Those fish are all getting in position for it. So I should have thrown it yesterday a little bit when I was fishing, but I had some guys around me. It's not a secret, but sometimes you forget, and I had one tied on and I didn't throw it because, you can't hide a buzzbait on the water. Everyone knows what you're throwing. So,
yeah.
So I didn't want to throw it at the time where I was, but that might be a way to put a good one in the boat right now. And it's fun throwing because it's every cast is anticipation, just waiting for something big to blow it out of the water.
Yeah, usually when you get one this time of year, it's going to be a big one that's kind of snuck up there shallow and it's sun, and you just kind of surprise her and she sucks it in. Here's a good question. Jeremiah says, what's your guys' thoughts on throwing a swim jig on the pressured lakes when the fish are seeing a ton of chatterbaits and spinnerbaits this time of year? I throw a swim jig a lot, and I've thrown them for years, but it's something that I really been leaning on probably the last 3 years. And I just feel really, really confident. And you're right. I think it is something that the fish don't see as much, because most people will throw a spinnerbait, and the chatterbait's kind of taken over the reins of the spinnerbait. So I would say, in order of things that fish see, it's usually a chatterbait and then a spinnerbait. Well, I can't really say that. They're seeing both of them equally, but what they're not seeing is a swim jig. And I'll show you this one real quick. This is one I've been throwing around.
Swim jig.
Saving it.
I got something I'd like to add on that swim jig, especially this time. Well, this is true all the time. Is that one right there?
Oh, the tinsel?
Well, the white swim jig with a white trailer. Basically a chatterbait without the chatterbait on it. You know what I mean? This was a staple. I get a chuckle out of this swim jig thing. We're fortunate. You guys were talking about the Pee Wee jig and Fred Washburn with Chad Morgan Taylor, and Carterville legend, really a Midwestern legend. And Fred is responsible for showing everyone around here what a swim jig could do. And, whether it be his peewee jig or his other regular jigs, but the old white jig with a white pork chunk on the back and fishing that, just like we'd throw a chatterbait now in the weeds, throwing that in the weeds, and that that would be just as effective, maybe more effective now because everyone's throwing a chatterbait. But that's something to definitely remember, a white jig right now.
Yeah, I throw the even in this dirty water like we got now, this like a black and blue, this is called a Midnight Shad. This is the Limit Out Compact swim jig by Cumberland Pro. It's this color is something that I throw even in that dirty water, and I'll also throw the white too. On this one, I'm usually, a lot of times I'm throwing a 1/4 ounce to keep it up really high, and I'll put a full size Rage Crawl on there so it can really slow it down. And then I'll also throw, like, I'll usually throw a white Menace on if I'm throwing. This is the Chartreuse Shiner in the Cumberland Pro swim jig as well.
Yeah.
But I like that Chartreuse Shiner or the Menace, or I'll throw the Skinny Dipper on there too, the Little Dipper. That's kind of my go-tos in this stained water, and as the water clears up, you got a couple other colors. Like this is a Lavender Shad, which is a cool color. And then this is like the bluegills color. It's got a little bit of everything in that skirt. So, but yeah, swim jigs, man, I really love them. I got one tied on all the time when the water's warm.
Yeah, that's a good point too with the fishing pressure. I sometimes forget about the swim jig because I'm so keyed in on a chatterbait. I'll say this: he said, he mentioned chatterbait and spinnerbait kind of together. The spinnerbait is kind of, I think, it's sometimes a little bit forgotten about a little bit because of the chatterbait. I know still a lot of guys throw it, but sometimes I feel like I can throw a spinnerbait and be a little different anymore than someone else. And that's the thing about spinnerbait. There's so many different.
You see that comment right there?
Let's see. Kid you not bragging. Roland Martin just called me asking about a lake we fish. Still, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, I remember seeing Roland Martin on the side of Route 13. He was lost looking for Crab Orchard Lake. He'd stop. Remember when the pros were here, when they had like they fished crab, and then I think they fished wren, and they did the boat racing thing. Do you remember that?
I heard about it.
Denny Brower and the whole, that was the 90s, I think. I don't really remember. I saw Roland Martin pulled off on the side of 13. He's looking at a map. I don't know if I say he's lost. I don't know. He may have just been talking on the phone. I don't know. But yeah, Roland Martin on the side of Route 13. You just don't see that very often.
No.
Yeah, I was throwing a crankbait on Crab Orchard, and David Fritz went by me. I was like, I wonder whose crankbait they're going to eat, mine or David Fritz. Probably David Fritz. Yeah.
I bet his had a fresher paint job on
it. He probably knew how to work it a little better than I did too.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking, that's just when he said Roland Martin. I thought of that.
Whitewell says Central Indiana water temps on rise. Rivers are low 50s. Smallmouth getting active on white grubs. Lakes getting active. Pulled a few on the, however you say that, Akashira, screwhead, and a baby fluke at sunrise. That's good, man. I'm glad things are starting to thaw out.
Low 50s.
Kevin Kane says, I mainly throw a swim jig all spring and summer up here in northern Illinois, heavily pressured lakes. Smaller sizes like the 1/4 ounce with smaller trailers seem to have the best results. Yeah, I throw a 1/4 ounce, Kevin. I throw a 1/4 ounce probably 75% of the time, and then I go up to a 3/8. Very rarely do I throw a 1/2 ounce because I'm not fishing a lot of current. If I was fishing more current and trying to keep it down, you probably have to bump up to a little bit heavier one. But that 1/4 ounce is kind of that's my workhorse, because I'm usually throwing that swim jig in 5 foot of water or less. So I can just adjust my trailer on that 1/4 ounce if I wanted to get down just a little bit more, but I can still keep it really, really slow. Let's see, we just saw that. Stephanie's on here. She said, one thing I like about jigs is you can't hardly get it hung. The bait keeper is awesome. I'm new to fishing and not been hung up even around grass and any cover.
Cool. That's my swim jig trailer this time of year.
The pork frog, huh?
Oh, white. Yes, sir.
You throw that on everything. I bet it really keeps it up high.
It does.
Yeah. It's a good question from Noah Schaefer. When would you throw a jig versus a Texas rig?
It's probably more, for me, cover-oriented situation. Like right now, there's probably some fish that have penetrated those thick water willow mats that haven't really started to grow yet. And an exposed hook of a jig, you're probably looking at getting hung up but you could punch some sort of plastic into them right now. And, that would be when I would make that switch, is depending on what cover I'm fishing. Water temperature really wouldn't have anything to do with it for me right now. It'd just be where the fish was located and how I could best access the fish.
Yeah, I don't know. Geez, that's a very tough question, because I typically throw a jig when the water's cold.
Yeah,
but I'll throw a shaky head a lot too when the water's cold, and that's plastic.
And they eat it.
Yeah, and I catch a lot of fish in cold water on a shaky head.
I've always said, and I've never done it, in the summer months, I love a 7-inch power worm. Just when I'm in Southern Illinois and I'm fishing brush piles in the summer or whatever, anything. But I've never thrown a power worm really in the winter. And I'm like, well, I don't think the fish read any articles saying they're not supposed to eat that. So I don't, I need to, one of these days I'm going to throw it in the winter and see what happens. So it's a good question, and we probably overthink that too much.
Yeah.
But it is a real issue where fish are located.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly. Yeah. Especially if you're, like punching into some heavy cover and stuff, you're going to go with the Texas rig plastic. Although they do make that matlock jig that's got the double weed guard. A lot of guys fish that down in Florida for punching, but I'm typically kind of 50-50 on, even drag. I was getting ready to say, I'll fish a football jig out deep, but a lot of times you'll catch them on a Texas rig out deep just as well. Even something compact, like something you would normally flip up tight, like say a beaver or something. I've still caught plenty of fish out in 20 feet of water with a beaver around a brush pile, just same place I would fish a football jig or something. I think one instance where I will throw a plastic is during the spawn, like the time that's getting ready to come up here real soon, when I think those fish are up there on beds, even if I can't see them. I think that's a good time to throw a plastic. For some reason, they seem like they prefer like a D-bomb or a speed crawl or a beaver or whatever it is, rage crawl, something plastic over a jig, but that's just my experience. I mean, that's not saying that you can't catch those same fish on a jig too. So,
yeah, there's probably no right or wrong answer to that. But the plastics you can get sometimes a little bit more creative with, or there's so many out there, and colors are endless. I do know some guys that they really like to spend some time painting up like a beaver just the way they want it, as far as getting just the right coloration on it. So it probably depends more on where exactly what lake you're fishing. Every lake's a little different. So
yep. Well, I'll show you one more bait before we go. We've been on here for an hour and 30 minutes, but I talked about that big thumper blade, and this is another spinner bait, a spinner bait with the painted blades. And I learned about this on Kentucky Lake from Big Fish RBT. I drew him in a BFL down there, and
yeah, that's a good bait.
won. It is, and not a lot of people throw the painted blades. And there are times when they really like these painted blades. In that tournament I was just talking about, we were fishing on Barkley Lake, and the water was like it is around here right now. It was probably 6 inches to 8 inches of visibility. And I hadn't seen this bait for sure. I mean, I've had some spinner baits with a little orange kicker blade on it, and take that back. I probably did have some with full painted blades. In fact, I know I did, but I just hadn't thrown them and hadn't really given them a chance. Now I had thrown some of the spinner baits that just had a little Colorado, like orange kicker or red kicker or whatever, maybe chartreuse. But he showed me that this sucker works for those pre-spawn bass in that really, really stained water. He caught 23 pounds of bass. His best 5 or 23 pounds, and I had like 17 pounds for my best 4. I won the BFL out of the back of the boat, and he got second place in the BFL. And we fished a little 200-yard stretch of riprap back and forth with this is a 1/2 ounce Booyah spinnerbait with the painted blades. So there's sometimes when they'll want something like this Cumberland Pro with the big O size 7. And then there's sometimes when they want these willows with the painted blades. So, I've been throwing both of them around, and the big Colorado's been paying off more than this, but it could switch. You got to have them both.
Yeah, I got a little story on painted blades. So when the Rayburn Red thing first started to be a thing, and this was, they've been making red rattle traps for, I don't know, how does that date, 20 years or so?
I would think so.
When the red rattle trap thing started, I thought, well, what can I do that's different and throw red? So I was like, I've always been a blade fisherman, a spinnerbait guy. So I'm like, all right, we're lucky. We have lunker lure right here in Southern Illinois. I know a guy. So I had him make me a pile of red spinnerbaits. And I wouldn't have said this 5 years ago, but the luster is a little bit off of the bait. Red blades, red skirt, everything. You never saw this before. So anyway, lunker lure made me a bunch of those. And that was, as far as the painted blade goes, whenever the red thing started happening, that's what I was quietly throwing. That really worked. And then when you throw in the white one, War Eagle, who is a spinnerbait that we all like, makes a really good painted blade spinnerbait. They call that one Coleslaw. And with the white blades, it's got a little color in the back of the skirt. They call that Coleslaw. That is a really good painted blade spinnerbait around here when they're on a blade. And had some really good days on that. When they're on it. And you're right. I don't know what it is about a painted blade, but there are times that they just eat it. They just do. And that Coleslaw one by War Eagle, I really like that one.
Yeah, that's a good looking spinnerbait.
Yeah.
Lots of War Eagle spinnerbaits in my tackle box.
Yeah.
I haven't
old
thrown
red
a
one.
red.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I haven't thrown a red one a lot. I've thrown a red jerkbait. I had some good success with a red jerkbait. You got a few of everything, Ron. Let's answer these last questions here. Let's shut this sucker down. We've been on here for a while. River Billy's Outdoors says, why we were talking finesse, what in your opinion what are your favorite pre-spawn finesse lures? Muddy or clear water?
That's easy for me.
What is it?
That's a black jig for me for finesse.
Yeah.
This time of year, I'm throwing anywhere between, when I say finesse, I'm talking all the way down to a 16th ounce full size jig. But that's, I wouldn't say that's majority of the time. I'm throwing a 3/8 ounce small black jig. I don't think that thing ever will go out of style. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, lately, something that I've been throwing that's finessey. This is the little Cumberland Pro Procaster. It's a compact jig, and I'll take this collar and I'll trim it up and I'll make that kind of spider cut on it, and it just
kind
gives
of like
really
you did there in the Ozarks.
Right. That's exactly what I did. And we had some, and that was muddy water. I mean, that was a foot of visibility, and we caught quite a few fish on not this exact color, but this jig, and a shaky head. Shaky head is something you can throw even in the, stained water. I use the shaky head a lot. I got a lot of confidence in it, and it gets real good. It gets real good right now too. They'll even take it off of a bed. It's not utilized a lot right now. I mean, if you've located, like Ron was saying earlier, if you come through an area with a moving bait and you find some fish or find a fish, you better stop and slow down and pick it apart. And that's when something like a little jig or a shaky head or something can get you some bites. And then, I like a little speed crawl. I'm always thinking about a little speed crawl on a 1/4 ounce Texas rig, 1/4 ounce weight. It's finessey.
That'd work. I guarantee it'd work.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is to make sure you have a confidence finesse bait this time of year, whatever it is, whether it's a speed crawl or a little black jig or shaky head, whatever. If you have confidence in it, you'll probably fish it in a way you'll get bit, and but I think it is important to have a confidence finesse jig, or finesse bait rather, I should say. This time it's probably, as long as we've got all this fishing pressure with the situation our lakes are in, a confidence finesse bait might be as important as it's ever been.
Is that a bottomless boat you're in? What will Ron pull out next? He's got deep, that Vexus is probably not good for him because it's got, look at that. It's got some deep compartments in there.
Wait a minute. There's a few in there.
Yeah, you got that decked out nicely. Hammy says, glad none of us have tackle hoarding issues. It's all necessities. You never know when you're going to need that.
Hey, if I die tomorrow, don't I win some sort of award?
I think so. Like the most organized boat, I think.
No, it's not. No, not anymore. Yeah, I need to organize it. It's pretty bad right now.
Toogie finally caught a bass at Cedar the other day. 8 months of trying. Hey, never give up, man. The second one's going to be a whole lot easier than the first one. I can promise you that. Dave wants to know, Ron, does your boat still have the new boat smell to it?
No. Fortunately, I think it's got a little bit of a fish smell to it now. It has enough fish flopping in the bottom now where it kind of smells like the boat should. So
it smells like
actually, I had to
Gunnersville.
clean the live well. That was a good problem.
Good deal. All right, man. Let's shut this sucker down. We've been on here for a while. Appreciate everybody for jumping on here, staying on here. We got some really good interaction tonight. Lots of good comments, had lots of good fishing reports. And this is something that we're going to keep doing it as long as our schedules allow. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to get a few guides from some lakes that are just a little bit outside of our area, but they're also destination lakes. I know a lot of people from this area will travel to Lake of the Ozarks, Kentucky Lake, maybe Gunnersville, just keeping some of these possibilities for summer trips, you know, in the mix and trying to get some people that can give us some fishing reports. So it's something we're just going to continue to work on. But
yeah, and you're doing a really good job. Gabe's doing all that work. I'm not. I just sign into this thing once a week. So Gabe, you're doing a really good job there. And
you just wear the t-shirt.
Huh?
You just wear the t-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. And so your efforts are greatly appreciated. And this thing's gonna, I think this thing will get a little tighter as we go on. We'll get some more information put out there. But I tell you one thing about these area lakes that I like to hear is every little thing I hear about Kentucky Lake lately is an improvement. You know, you don't hear some of the stuff we were hearing for a while, and I've been hearing little bits of good news about Kentucky Lake from a lot of different people for a little bit now, and that's really good. You know, heck, I'm an hour and a half from Kentucky Dam Village, so it's really kind of silly I don't fish down there more, but it is what it is. So that's I'm glad that you've got some connections down there. That's a good deal.
Yeah. Well, we need to make a road trip then for too long. Yeah. Maybe next winter or this winter when you get back from up north.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're going to sign off. As of now, next Thursday, same time. I'll try to go eat Mexican a little bit earlier this time, and I'll be on time. It wasn't too bad. It's only like about 5 minutes late. So, but
I'll get on. I'm going to get on some other smaller lakes too. I've got a tournament coming up on Grassy in a couple of weeks, so I'll be getting over there.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, I don't know what I got. I think I'm going to be fishing Egypt next Wednesday, but I'll do my homework. We'll get some fresh reports. So, All right, Ron, have a good evening.
Later.
All right.